been successful to observe almost anything, because now this company that is the one that allowed these flights to come back, Signature FBO, that willingly started a contract with ICE to service their flights, which their contract with the airplane company Global Crossing Airlines, they decided to switch the plane around. We are not able to see anymore. They're blocking our view. Geo buses are blocking our view. They don't want us to see people being handcuffed and being put in the planes.
Maru Villalpando, we have to leave it there. We want to thank you so much for being with us with the group La Resistencia. That does it for our show. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. Thanks for joining us.
The viewpoints expressed in this program are the opinions of the people expressing them, and not necessarily those of Fresh Air Incorporated, its staff, or its board of directors.
Hi, this is Al McFarlane, host of The Conversation with Al McFarlane. You're listening to 90.3 FM, KFAI, Minneapolis. I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to The Conversation with Al McFarlane. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along as well. I can't tell you how much I love KFAI, the station, its reach, its purpose, its mission, its ability to connect people from around the world. And kudos always to Amy Goodman for pioneering advocacy and analysis. And I'm so happy that our program follows that. What a wonderful lead in to what I call robust conversation here on The Conversation with Al McFarlane. Before I begin, I want to invite all of you to know that not only are you listening to us here live on KFAI, but you may be connecting with us through kfai.org from anywhere in the world. And if you are, shout us out. Let us know where you are. Let us know your name. Just send a comment in the comment section. You could be connecting with us on the KFAI YouTube and Facebook channels, also on the Black Press USA YouTube and Facebook channels. You could be connecting with us on the Insight News YouTube and Facebook channels. You also may be connecting with us on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and however you're connecting, we appreciate, we value you, and we want to know who you are and where you are. So if you got a minute, just put a note in the comment. If you're online, put a note in the comment section. Tell us your name, first name, last name, whatever you want to, and where you're joining us from. We want to shout you out. If you have questions or comments, we want to have you engaged in this conversation with us as well. I think with that, let me just jump right into it. We're starting our Tuesdays off now with a regular segment on sports with our sports editor, Coach Leah. Coach Leah, how you doing?
Hey, happy Tuesday, everybody. Doing pretty well. Just very, very happy to be here and to just share a few things real quick with you. As we know that this is March, and March is Women's History Month, and I would be remiss to not start today's segment honoring the women of Insight News that are in leadership. And so Batala McFarlane, who I've known probably my entire adult life for sure. First female publisher that I've ever known. And so that's huge. I'd like to also shout out Trina Stubbs, who is serving as the amazing Chief Operating Officer for Insight News. She's dope. I love using that word. She's great. As well as Sunny Yang, who I saw a new title for her, but she's the person that puts everything together that you see online, everything that you see in our printed versions when you go to your favorite places of your favorite stores or places of business where you find Insight News, the actual paper version. And I'm actually really, really proud of that, because even though a lot of things have been moving to the internet and virtually and things of that nature. I don't know about you, but I'm still somebody that likes to take my Saturday afternoon, sit down for a minute and just read. And so that's awesome. Awesome.
Let me jump in and sit with that for a second. That's so wonderful that you did that. 2 points I want to make. One is on the reading. I think we owe it to ourselves and our community. If we want to talk about literacy, we owe it to ourselves as Black people to emphasize the need to doing the physical act of reading something in our hands, like a newspaper, like a book. And it's easy to surrender all of that muscle memory to the digital space. But I think in the long run, we don't gain, we lose if we surrender that tool, that ability. So I'm hoping that conversations like this encourage us to go to Black newspapers, Black books, Black magazines, anywhere around the country, anywhere around the world. And let's not get duped into thinking it's an either or. It's not either digital or print. No, it's both and. All of it goes together and we own it all. And that's what we're doing today, is talking about ownership of our spaces and our ideas and our access. The other thing I want to add, and thank you so much for shouting out the women at Insight News and McFarlane Media. Shout out to you for your exceptional leadership, your career, and the gifts you bring to community and to culture everywhere, both in your own athletic career, but also in your leadership and business career in doing this column. I want to say one last thing, person you haven't really met in person yet, but the power behind the power is my partner in life, and that's Bobby Ford McFarlane. And people may
yes, the Queen Mother, yes.
Line that says BP Ford, and BP Ford is my life partner, my wife, my inspiration, and Coach Leah. Yesterday was the 10th. Well, Sunday was the 10th, right? So on Sunday, Bobby and I celebrated our 51st wedding anniversary.
Wow.
I'm just happy that we found each other when we did. I'm happy that we intend to see ourselves together for the rest of this life as we prepare to be together in the next life and the next one and the next one. Because I think this is a cosmic relationship that comes around and comes around and comes around. So my 2 cents, thank you. Go ahead and continue.
Yeah, no worries. So this year's national theme for Women's History Month, and we'd love to see that right now, happens to be, oh my gosh, where are my notes? Well, it's celebrating women who advocate for equity, diversity, and inclusion. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you what, being a part of McFarlane Media and Insight News and bringing sports and anything that we do bring definitely speaks to that. And so that's why I for sure wanted to make sure that I shouted out the leadership at McFarlane Media and Insight News, because we have been in male-dominated spaces for a long time now, mm-hmm. and kicking butt as far as I'm concerned. So, but yeah, so I wanted just to do that real quick. Going to take a hard pivot and take a moment now. I've been very, very fortunate to have people that are in the business spaces that support the work that we do here at Insight News. And one proud sponsor of Insight News Sports is Crawley Wellness Collection. And we will talk more about that at another time. But the Wellness Collection is over 80%, is made with magnesium. And as we know, over 80% of the population is magnesium deficient. And so when you look at that stat, that metric, you're like, wait, what? And what's the big deal? But in the coming weeks, we'll talk about what the big deal is for that. But I want to, again, thank Crawley's Wellness Collection for being a proud sponsor of Coach Leah and Inside News Sports. So, okay, next hard pivot that I want to take is to take a minute to talk about March Madness it is indeed mad already. It's already March Madness. This past weekend, we saw South Carolina almost get knocked out of the SEC tournament in the quarterfinals, or I'm sorry, the semifinals. But their big girl, their center, who had never made a 3-point shot in a game ever, made her first and only shot at the buzzer, making the shot and elevating them by 1 point over the team that they were playing. And so it was really, really, really exciting to see that. And then they were able to go on and play LSU for the SEC championship game, and which they won. Oh, it was pretty close for most parts of the game, but South Carolina was able to pull that out just fine. So South Carolina, Dawn Staley's team, Division I women's basketball, or Division I period, is the only team right now that is undefeated, men or women. And so we want to give a shout out to South Carolina. And just on a personal note, if I can take a point of personal privilege, we adopted her years ago into our tall girl clique. And so, because she definitely has tall girl tendencies. So Tall Girls United as a formal organization now that we have going on. She's somebody who we're rooting for sure, with going into March Madness. And we're fairly confident that they'll go deep into the tournament, and that we'll see them in Cleveland at the Women's Final Four. And so that's all I got for you today. And I just am so grateful that, again, I have this opportunity to come and hang out with you. I'll be in Minneapolis again soon. Right now, if I didn't know if you know this, but I am splitting my residencies between in the Midwest, the lowest state of Texas, and then the upper state of Minnesota. And I love it all.
There we go. Well, listen, always a pleasure to be with you. And thank you so much. I put a note in the chat saying how much I love this conversation with you. It's a great way to start the program. So I'm looking forward to continuing. I think, what women are doing in leadership and in sports is just hugely important. And I think you hit the nail on the head. We have to examine the power and the truth of women's leadership in what were perceived as male-dominated domains, because that in itself is a myth that needs to be examined and eliminated. I think we have to find a way to break through and break out of the limitations that it places both particularly on women, but also it places limitations on men that are not appropriate, right? How do we get freedom? And freedom means we acknowledge the power and the leadership and the success and the potential of women and everyone else as well. So, Coach Leah, you doing the thing. Keep it up. Thank you so much.
Can I take just a half a minute?
Sure.
There is, if I can have a shameless plug, I enjoy being in the space of consulting and advising. And one of my areas of expertise, and I love working with these folks, are female executives that are working in male-dominated industries. And so if you would like to understand how you're going to navigate through that space as a woman, if you're somebody that's thinking about taking a pivot within your career, please, you can find me at Coach Leah at insightnews.com, or you can go to my website, www.coachleah.net. I do a free consultation, 30 minutes, to talk to you, to find out what you're really trying to do and wanting to do, and then we can move on from there. But you're absolutely right. Everybody benefits from a strong woman leader, not just women. So thank you for that.
There we go. All right. Thank you, Coach Leah. I'm Al McFarlane. This is The Conversation with Al McFarlane. And it's so cool to be with Coach Leah every Tuesday. And I just love reading her work in Inside News. And I think that we are doing stuff that's innovative by having her as the sports editor of our paper and bringing a different sensibility. It's just not the scores and just not who won, who lost, but there's a bigger story about the empowerment of people and community, and about relationship building, and about developing executive talent. So that's what she's doing with her column in Inside News, and by being here with me every Tuesday. Coach Leah, again, thank you so very much. And if you want to talk to her, Coach Leah at Insight News, so let her know what your thoughts are. Give her, a shout out. She'd be glad to respond to you. We'd be glad to respond to you as well. I want to move on to my next interview, and that's with Adam Duininck. Adam has recently joined the Minneapolis Downtown Council after he served as the Director of Governmental Affairs for the North Central States Regional Council of Carpenters. It's called NCSRCC, where he spent over 6 years leading the legislative and communications effort across the Midwest. And prior to this time with the Carpenters, he led the Metropolitan Council as the chair, where he directed the agency's regional planning, community development, wastewater, and transit systems for the 7-county metro area. He served as a Metro Council member representing Minneapolis for 4 years and later served on the Minneapolis Planning Commission. He also recently co-chaired Mayor Jacob Frye's Inclusive Economic Recovery Work Group. Adam, so good to see you. How are you, my friend?
I'm really good, Al. Thanks a lot for having me. It's good to see you too.
Well, it's so good to see you and to get caught up. We haven't talked for a bit, and I watch what you're doing and I monitor what you're doing. I'm always impressed. But I want to give this space for you to share both vision and milestones and challenges in an idea of, number one, transparency and accountability, but also inviting community to experience the sense of equity, ownership, and engagement in being partner in creating futures for all of us as residents of our community. Absolutely. What's your priority? What are your priorities right now?
Oh man, it's first of all, just getting my feet underneath me in the new role, which is going great, by the way. It's an excellent organization, and we're at an important, pivotal time in the downtown and in our city. But a lot of priorities at the moment. Let me just rattle off a couple that are top of mind. First and foremost, I talk about this with everybody. It is an emphasis on safety and people feeling safe in their community, safe in their neighborhood, safe downtown, especially. And I think about that a couple different ways. I don't just think of safety as how do we approach crime, but just community safety, people feeling safe and comfortable and inclusive as well. So it's as important for everyone who lives in the city to feel welcome in their own city and safe in their own environment. And so that's a big discussion that we're having at the Downtown Council. We had a discussion of that sort this morning at my executive committee. As we look ahead to our 2035 plan, our long-term strategic plan. So safety comes about a few different ways with our operations that the Downtown Improvement District works on, as well as how we integrate our operations with the business owners and the community in the neighborhood. It's just an important part of how people feel welcome into downtown. There's been a lot of chatter in the last couple of years about how either vacant downtown can feel or empty or financially challenged. And it's really incumbent upon us to figure out what the combinations of activations we can help put on, the community gatherings we can help support. Some of those events are things that we do. Sometimes it's other events that we're helping to play host to. This past week, we were fortunate enough to experience what I would describe as one of the busiest weekends in downtown since the pandemic. And it was great to hear Coach Leah talk about the basketball tournament. That's as a quick aside, near and dear to me. My daughter plays basketball. Her name's Carolina, so she's always rooting for South Carolina. So it's fun to hear you visit a little bit about the basketball this weekend. But having both the Big Ten women's tournament here, we also had a big convention that Meet Minneapolis hosted at the convention center. It was the 1 week per quarter that Target's employees were in their office. So all the activities down here really led to it kind of feeling busy in the skyways, busy on the streets. And that's an important part about it being both a safe and a vibrant downtown. To me, those things go hand in hand. So that's certainly a top priority. Another big priority is our long range plan. I mentioned that we're calling it a year right now, the 2035 plan, because we try to plan in approximately 10-year increments. And a big portion of that plan is how do we navigate some of the big picture issues, the big changing landscape around commercial real estate, what that looks like, how we integrate the residential neighborhood into the commercial business district. A lot of people think about downtown as the 12 blocks between Washington Avenue and Nicollet and 12th, but it's a lot more than just a few tall skyscrapers and towers. We have these different neighborhoods with really distinct personalities. The North Loop, we have East Town, the Mill District, we have Loring Park, which is just a quick walk from downtown. How do those residential parts of downtown kind of link to each other and link into the changing central business district that we have here. And there's a lot that goes into that. There's a lot of bringing the interests together. The Downtown Council is a big convener. It's an important role that we play in our community. And then the last thing I'll talk a little bit about is focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's a personal value of mine, one that I led with the Metropolitan Council. And how do we talk about a culture of inclusion that doesn't, politically polarize that issue, but rather just makes it something that becomes common sense. Our neighborhoods and our communities are changing. The future of Minnesota and Minneapolis and the city is changing dynamically. How do we embrace that culture of inclusion so everybody feels like they have a vested interest in downtown? That's something that's very top of mind for me and our organization.
I'm Al McFarlane. You're listening to The Conversation with Al McFarlane. My guest is Adam Duininck. He's a new leader at the Minneapolis Downtown Council. Adam, again, thank you for being here. Thank you for that synopsis. I'm going to ask you to sit in each of those topics a little bit more, just to bring them out a little bit, to unfold them, and to unpack them a little bit. For example, you mentioned that safety is always top of mind for everybody. Talk more about that. Let me give you my take on it. As I live in North Minneapolis, close to downtown. I'm always watching what I think are ethnic or cultural or racial overtones or undernotes about interactions in the community. And often I have been critical, Adam, you know this, of the strategy of presenting ideals that we never back up with action, right? And so I think that Minnesota in general, Minneapolis in particular, have a history of sounding right and talking right, but never delivering, and finding a way to blame the lack of delivery on those for whom the delivery never arrived, those who were permanently excluded or kept at the margins. So so what does it mean for downtown? I think, well, on the one hand, everybody loves downtown, beautiful downtown, clean downtown, but there's also an ambient fear that you sense when you walk downtown, and the fear, based, from my point of view, is based on a cultural, what do you call it? How do you say it? A racial sensibility where there's a fear of Black people in so many ways downtown. I may be overstating the case. If I am, I apologize, but it's straightforward. So what do you think? How do we address that question of, my wife and I used to walk every day on River Road back before they built the new Federal Reserve building, before all the construction went up. And we used to walk and we'd say, one of these days, somebody who lives in this neighborhood is going to ask us what we're doing here. This is when there were railroad tracks and rats along the river, right? And people would come there and park and just overlook before the River Road got done. And so that has happened. Now it's a new, vibrant, bustling, beautiful community. But sometimes you have the sense that, do I belong here? There's this attitude sometimes. So talk about that if you would.
Yeah, no, I think, you raise a lot of great questions as always. And I know, in terms of the interaction with downtown, there is oftentimes this feeling of, even if there's just a bunch of people hanging around or the bus stops are overflowing with people, that's all of a sudden an unsafe environment. And we have to think about making spaces that are welcoming for everybody, that facilitate a sort of social cohesion that at times in the Twin Cities we've really lacked. And I think it's something we have to grapple with and be real with and understand that what are some of those spaces? Sometimes it's a public space like the Commons Park or Loring Park. Sometimes it's better connectivity between the business district and the neighborhoods. I think the questions you're raising are important ones. I think what the struggle oftentimes at the city level has been defined as we either support one agenda or another. Either you want to defund the police and you want to change the power structure with the police department, or you support the police and you stand with them. And I think most people operate more in the middle of those two extremes. Those are just extremes that set a political discourse. I'll just retell a story because we had Public Safety Commissioner Todd Barnett do one of our programs with our members. He just started as a Public Safety Commissioner last year, a little before the time I started. And he said there's all kinds of, when it comes to safety, there's all kinds of conversations about the police. And that's an important part of the conversation. He said, but there's not a lot of conversations about emergency response or neighborhood safety or how we empower communities. He said those divisions, even amongst the city, they don't have the same leadership structure. They don't have the same resources. And while we spend a lot of time talking about police, most of our problems could be solved with better neighborhood support, better activism in the neighborhoods, and plugged into that kind of that feeling of being socially connected to your neighbors and people that you work around and those sorts of environments. And I think it's a good reminder about kind of what's, I keep coming back to safety is different for different people. And as we think through our long range plan, I don't want it to just become about how we redefine safety just through the lens of how it impacts the police. That's an important element, but how does it impact the community too? Because everybody has to feel safe, welcome. I talked to one of our board members and he said, me and my sons went on a trip to New York and he wanted to go into the Gucci store. And I said, why would you ever want to do that? I wouldn't even feel comfortable going into a space like that. And he goes, how do we create our city so that people kind of feel comfortable no matter where they're going? If they're going into a big store, a big business, walking through the Crystal Court at the IDS, no matter where you are, or walking through the courtyard by City Hall and the county government center, everybody should kind of have that feeling of belonging wherever they are in our downtown.
And you feel that's doable?
I do. It's not going to be easy. I think it's something that we have to take our history on head on. I think there's no denying the challenges that we faced. I think, one of the things that Commissioner Barnett said to me that resonated is, even though our police department ranks are at the lowest levels, they're around 500 officers. So think about it this way in a positive: the people that are here are the people that really believe in us and believe in the city and really want to be a part of the solution. How do we continue to think of it that way? I think some of how this interacts with the department and the city and what we do going forward, coming out of the last couple of years and the murder of George Floyd, I think how we respond to that is going to be something that really defines us as a city.
One of the things that I like that I've seen downtown is the addition of, I'm not sure what the word for them is, but helpers, men and women with some kind of jacket on or insignia that they're there to help people out. They're navigators, I guess.
There are ambassadors. Yep.
Ambassadors, that's the right word. I think that's a huge plus. And I don't know if this is a city navigator or a private business navigator, but when I go to Whole Foods, for example, downtown on Washington Avenue, usually a couple of brothers, Black men, and they're greeting people, and their energy is infectious. It's positive, and it lets you take a minute away from, having to go through the internal dialogue of am I welcome here? And they approach you with an invitation that affirms you and affirms your presence and affirms the organization's commitment to you as a customer. I think that's rich, and I think that's happening all over downtown. Am I correct?
You are. And it is a little, you said, is it public or private? It's a little bit of both. It was given the power to create such a downtown improvement district was given to the Downtown Council. So they're technically private sector employees and funded by a sort of downtown improvement district that does an assessment on the property owners. But I'm glad to hear that report. That's exactly what I see in here downtown. The ambassadors are some of our best assets and some of our people that are on the front lines, sometimes just greeting and showing people around, and other times just kind of being that presence that helps people feel safe and welcome. They even do things such as escort people to their cars if need be. It's a tremendous service. We're really fortunate to have it. And usually in weeks like the past week, when we had a lot of convention activity and some visitors in town, we try to put as many ambassadors out on the streets as possible. I also liken it to the fact that it's community-based approach to policing. So it isn't just, cops in their vehicles, or it's also a different kind of presence. And the city council has looked at this and they said, we want to designate cultural corridors or cultural districts and try to have ambassadors on Broadway and ambassadors on Lake Street and other parts of the city. I think we need to think about how to fund that long term. They had some one-time money to try it out, which I think is a great idea. But it really, and the thing about the ambassadors, if you know any of them, they care so much about downtown. They're passionate about it. It comes right through, as you expressed.
Yeah, they absolutely do. Well, kudos to the Downtown Council and for our city for doing that. And I agree with you. I hope that it can find resources to expand throughout the city. I think that's how change takes place. It gives people a chance to say, I own this, and this is mine, and I'm a part of the solution. I'm not relegated to the problem side of the equation. And I think that's transformative. And I think that those who own businesses and who live downtown eventually come to finding their better selves, their best selves, and adopting an attitude that, as you say, is all about inclusion and that recognizes the strength of diversity and recognize culture as an asset, not as a liability. Well, you played a major role, and the problems aren't over with mass transit, and so that intersects your history with the Metro Council and with the transit stops downtown Minneapolis and transit riding throughout the system. It's a major problem, and the city and the county or the metro region are trying to address this set of problems almost in the same way. Talk about that for a second. How do these intersect? What's the knowledge base for where we're going?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more in terms of the challenges of the transit system and how it impacts downtown. If I heard about the struggles with safety and the feeling of it being not as safe downtown, probably a majority of those sentiments were expressed about the transit system, the transit platforms or the bus stops or being on the light rail itself. It's a couple of things I'll say about it. One, the transit system was probably hit as hard as any system could be by the pandemic. People weren't going to work, so there was little to no ridership for quite some time. The transit agency itself relies on some of those fare fund, the transit passes and the fares to fund its system. So they were short on money, and to build that ridership back up and get people feeling comfortable and confident in the transit system was a huge lift for the Metropolitan Council and Metro Transit. Last year, we finally saw an increase in ridership. It was about 15 to 20%, depending on when. And we were on the precipice of becoming, I think, a really major metropolitan area with a considerably more built out both LRT and bus rapid transit system here, which was a good thing. But the pandemic really disrupted that, obviously. And so the agency, I'll give them credit. The police chief there, Chief Morales, has been really engaged and on the system, riding it. He brought the Met Council members with him. Chair Zelli, I know, has been out riding the transit system. I think an increased presence and enforcement. It's both. I think they have the same challenge that general police departments have, which is how do you present a system that's welcoming and takes good care of its riders and creates a clean and safe environment for people while also enforcing the law, because it can at times become a place where lawlessness happens, stabbings and shootings and things that you don't want to see in your city. So
drug use, drug
abuse and challenge for people that find themselves without a home, and so they're riding on the trains just to get a place to sleep. So they have their challenges. I think that they're responding to them much better in the last few months, and I hope that continues, because having a consistent transit system is going to continue. It's just going to continue to be essential for us as a city as we grow to move people around. It also is a big thing when it comes to hosting events. A lot of large scale events need to move people in big ways, and so the transit system has to be functioning at a high level. And I hope that they continue to bounce back.
I'm Al McFarlane. You're listening to The Conversation with Al McFarlane. My guest, Adam Duininck. He's the leader at Minneapolis Downtown Council. Adam, so what do you say are some of the unique challenges facing downtown Minneapolis? Listen, I don't want to be bad news Al. Bad news. I'm not, because I believe in our city, and I believe that we have a powerful and wonderful resource that we can continue to grow and expand. And so with that, I want to ask you to sort of analyze unique challenges, but I think your analysis probably will include unique solutions.
I'm hoping so. And that's definitely why I'm somebody who's motivated by a challenge, which is why I wanted to be the chair of the Met Council and why I was excited to come here and focus on these challenges. I think some of the challenges that are unique to Minneapolis, I think one, like a lot of downtowns, we are spread out more than we realize. And so the connecting points of everything isn't always as intuitive as you might think. And so one of the things I've thought recently is why don't more people walk to work? Why don't more people come and take a bus or the LRT down here and walk around all day? And part of it is the built environment. If sidewalks are narrow, if the streetscape is kind of not well taken care of, if concrete is all busted up, you don't have that same incentive. How do we make it a little bit more of a better pedestrian experience? Not that long ago, this is something that I always remind people, not that long ago, a big portion of the workforce either took the old trolley system downtown or walked downtown and walked to work all the time. And so we get away from that, socially in terms of how we approach cities. I think that's one of the things that's a challenge. I think another challenge is how do we make the best use of either the skyway space and the streetscape space. And that's something that's long been a unique challenge of Minneapolis. The skyways can be an asset. Not a lot of cities, if any, most cities do not have a skyway system, right. But it also splits the retail into, so if you have a restaurant in the skyway, you might have busy skyway season, but then if you're on the street level, you're like, where are all the people? They're all up in the skyways. It means you need to have twice as much density and activity just to populate both levels. But so trying to figure out the best use of those two elements of the city is an important one. The other thing is, we have some of the strongest theater, arts, culture, the best restaurants. How do we continue to grow that? How do we incubate that? How do we support entrepreneurs and especially future business leaders? I've seen some of the chefs around town. They do a great job of mentoring people. I'd love to see some of these new businesses continue to grow and have that same sort of tree that's connected throughout our whole city. I've seen it start to become an important asset here, but to continue to grow that and nurture that is an important thing for me. The downside of not having a Dayton's here and a Donaldson's and some of the old retail that we used to have on Nicollet and in the heart of the city is what can grow in its place. And I know that your guest next will talk a little bit about her business and how it's a unique thing and a unique experience downtown. The Strive Bookstore is one of my favorite places to go downtown. How do we nurture that sort of approach to businesses as well? Because retail will look different downtown. It might be a mix of street vendors out on Nicollet if we're able to get it pedestrianized at some point. It might be a mix of not so much retail to go into a shop and buy something, but to go have experiences somewhere, to go play games with your friends or do things that are more social in nature. And so I think those are the sort of fun, creative challenges become opportunities, things that I'm excited about for downtown.
Somebody was talking to me a couple of days ago, maybe it was listening on the radio, maybe public radio, where they were discussing how wonderful it was last week or week before last when downtown skyways seemed to be back. So maybe that's what happened last week during the tournament or something. Mm-hmm. But palpable, feeling. People notice it, they observe it. And it reminds me, Adam, that Bobby and I used to, this was like, a few years back, in the morning at like 5 or 6 in the morning, drive down to 4th and maybe 1st or 2nd Avenue, walk up into the Skyway system and take a 45-minute walk from there to touch the doors at the end of 13th and Nicollet at the hotel there. We'd make the walk through Dayton's and through all the Skyways and then walk back, a 90-minute excursion every morning, which was a wonderful thing. And then what happens, if you do that for a long period of time, you start seeing people that you don't know, but you know them because you see them. And you give them a wink, a nod, a hello, a smile, a wave, and you create community. And I think that people that visit our town see that dynamic between people that don't know each other, but who know each other because they're all there at the same time. And they're on a single-minded vision, point A to point B, but in a place that they feel they should be and can be, and where they are seen and acknowledged. So I think that's the power. And I think that our Skyways are a global renowned, global renown, because people say, how did they do that? And I think we've shown them how it can do. My hope is that we keep rebuilding and I think address the question of a Skyway versus street level. And it's not either or. You're saying, how do we get them both to be fully functional, vibrant, and productive and profitable for everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. Look at it as an opportunity. I think it truly is. I think getting the Skyway access more universally known, the challenge of it now, and it has been for quite some time, is the private nature by which they're owned and operated. Mm-hmm. Some weekends, parts of the Skyway system are open. Some of them are open later than others. Yeah. How do we take some of the energy behind as we see more people in the office and back downtown? How do we fix some of these systems and make them even better?
Well, you mentioned that Target has 1 week per quarter that it requires employees to come back downtown. Talk about that. What's happening with people coming back to work in person? Is that trending the right way?
It is. Like a lot of things, as we see either a economic recovery or a sort of a bounce back of downtown, it's slow and incremental and not always as quick as some of us would like. It's, at the height of pre-pandemic life downtown, over 215,000 people would be downtown working. Just that they may or may not live here. Some of them did, of course, because they would walk to work, but many of them commuted in or lived in other parts of the city or the region. That number, we figure at the Downtown Council, is about 2/3 of that number. It's more like 140, 150,000 people per day. And that's at the height of it. Tuesday through Thursday has really solidified itself as the normal work week. Most companies, our top 15 employers at least, have some return to work that's either 2 days a week or 3. More of them are moving towards 3. U.S. Bank recently announced a 3-day work week, which is exciting, and really hats off to them and their leadership. My position on this has been, you're not going to get a lot by beating up on a business and saying you need to do this, you need to do that. I do commend people that are helping to cheerlead. The mayor has been a real proud champion of getting people downtown, which I commend. But I think it needs to be almost incentive based, and by that I mean employees, especially in a workforce shortage, employees need to see a benefit for being in the office. That could be a financial benefit. More likely, it could be a career benefit. What I've been telling folks, and I think this has worked well, is if young workers know that their future is connected to the networks they have, the mentoring they get, the real life experience, you're never going to build a big career for yourself working from your couch or working from your home office. You just aren't. You're going to be more isolated from your workforce. And as somebody who's been in leadership roles, I'm trying to build a culture here. Other leaders in the downtown community are building cultures. You can't do that unless you're seeing each other face to face. It's really important. You talked about the humanity of passing somebody in a skyway or on the street. It's the same way when you think about the people working together. We're never going to build the best team unless we're seeing each other and working together, holding each other accountable, and having fun together at times too. And so I think that the long story short, and try to summarize, the trajectory is good. A large percentage of employees are back 3 days a week, and we have more work to do to try to get it to be 4 or 5 days. And I think to some degree, the flexibility is going to remain in place, which is going to be better for workers too, and in the end, better for employers.
Last question before I bring my next guest up. Short comment on the strategic plan. What's down the road? You mentioned it's a 10-year plan. What's the capsule story on that?
Yeah, I guess if I could just really hone in on one specific point on this. It's in the past, we've written these plans the Downtown Council has, and they're important documents. They help drive decision-making, investments, what the city and city council and what they focus on, what the businesses are focused on. We really try to, and Steve Kramer, my predecessor, the CEO here before me, try to open up this process as broad as possible. We've had 200 to 250 people participating in our work streams, either in a leadership role or contributing. And the purpose is to build this sort of energy around a downtown plan that we can all be bought into and see a vision of and see it reflect some of us. So really trying to bring the community along more than we ever have. I'd like to continue to do that. We're going to have our vision document and a big announcement later this year, probably early in the summer. And that's going to help what we decide for what the real goal setting will be. In a strategic plan, you're always balancing what's aspirational and what's achievable. And so where those two things meet is where we'll set some goals. Some of them are, from our previous plans, we've done things like, where is a future Viking stadium going to be? Can we keep that downtown? Can we renovate, fix up Nicollet Mall and make it a world-class destination? Can we try to solve homelessness, which was an aspirational goal? Can we make sure downtown Minneapolis is a central hub of our transit and transportation network? So some of these things are going to be ongoing challenges. Some of them are new and unique to us. And I'm excited to, once we are further along, maybe it's a good opportunity to come back and visit with you more about where the goal is and how people can plug in to try and achieve these goals.
Excellent. Let's do that. Hang out with me for the next 15 minutes. I want to introduce my next guest, and she's connected to you because she's a downtown entrepreneur. Mary Taris is here. Mary Taris graduated from North High School in 1982. And when she graduated, her 2-year-old son, her son was 2 years old, but in 1998, he was a North High graduate as well. And she has gone on to raise 4 wonderful children. She's the grandmother of 2 adorable grandsons over the years. She's worked in the clerical field. She was a teacher 15 years, and she founded Strive Publishing in 2018 to address the need for more children's books that affirm Black life. Now she owns 2 bookstores in downtown Minneapolis. Her lived experiences and background in education influence her perspective on the power of books to bridge cultures and help shape society. She maintains connections with education and librarian organizations from across Minnesota as a voice for Black literature and literary equity. Mary, so good to see you. Welcome back to the conversation. Thank you. How you doing? Well, thanks for being here. And how are you?
I'm good, and it's a pleasure to be here. Hello, everyone.
Well, you got a new store. Talk about that first of all. I want people to know where you are and invite people to experience the work that you're producing for our city.
Yeah, so Strive Bookstore is a full independent bookstore now. We still have the mini bookshop in the sister co-op, which is located within the IDS Center, and Chameleon Shops offered us a larger space so that we could have a full independent bookstore in the Young Quinlan building. And thanks to Bob and Sue Greenberg, who are participating, with the Chameleon Shops and the Minneapolis Downtown Council, we are in a beautiful historic space. The Young Quinlan building is a historic building, and when people come in, they just love being in the bookstore for that purpose, but also for the purpose of connecting across cultures through the joy of books.
How much of the space do you occupy in that building?
We occupy about 4,000 square feet of the first floor level.
And
it's on Nicollet Mall, 901 Nicollet, right across the street from Target.
What's the range of books that you're offering there? Is there a forte, or is it all books?
Well, we specialize in uplifting underrepresented voices. So, of course, we started with our Black community, and then we want to connect across cultures. So we have many small independent book publishers who have, they're like vendors in our space. So you'll see different publishers, from women-owned publishers, military families, green card voices for immigrant voices, and Planting People Growing Justice, who focus on Black voices. And then we just curate books that we think that would benefit the community, books where people will come in and they didn't know that they needed this book or would be interested in a certain book. So we try to curate books that are not in the mainstream, and we uplift underrepresented voices in that way.
What's the status of Black book publishing locally and nationally? I have a sense that there's still a need to promote book writing, book selling, book collecting. What's your thought?
Absolutely, yes. I know there's been more focus on Black people in the publishing industry, but it's a huge lift. Like when you take underrepresented voices and you try to put them in the forefront, it's an ongoing struggle. People are used to what they're used to. They are used to the mainstream voices, and a lot of folks are just stuck in stereotypical ideas of people who come from different backgrounds. So we just want to be able to uplift the community in a way that represents everyone who lives in the community, and in a way where we can connect across cultures through literary events, and even just coming into the bookstore to, meet an author and just discover a new book.
You might have heard me comment to Sister Leah Jane Denley, our sports editor, at the beginning of the program, about how much I admire that she's a writer, that she's writing, that her column is in Insight News, and that she does other things that promote literacy. And the same question comes to you. I think sometimes our society is a little bit fickle or duplicitous. I'm not sure if that's the right word or not. When it says on the one hand, we want to encourage and support literacy, on the other hand, it does not, in an aggressive way, support book reading, newspaper reading, magazine reading. And it sort of supports this narrative that says the printed word is passé, no longer of value, and that the digisphere is where all of the future will unfold. And my position has been, it's not an either or proposition. The digisphere will and should unfold as it can and as it must, but that does not mean that we should or could turn our backs on historic systems for the acquisition, preservation, the maintenance, the collection of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And as I think about, I'm taking a course in hieroglyphics, for example, right now. And so it makes me think about the whole system of writing and the system of images and the system of meaning making that writing implies.
Uh-huh.
How do you define the world? I think books, images are the key. So what can we do, you and me together, me as a publisher, you as a purveyor, to help elevate this idea of the value of both reading and collecting books, so we understand the business of it as well? What do you think?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think, we need to really reach our children who are kind of being raised on technology, but we need to get books in their hands, because I see time and time again when I am involved in vendor fairs, when I go out to the schools with books that have representation, the joy in a student's eyes and their smile, and even just how they handle a book. When they see a book that they can see themselves in, they're happy, they're affirmed, and they even hug books like that, And I feel like it's a tangible way to get children interested in books. You can't just tell them to read. You need to be able to engage them in a story that matters to them.
I think people should, and I should, encourage, and I have done this, I continue to do it, encourage people, families, to start personal libraries.
Absolutely.
I have a fairly vast library here in my home,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a fairly vast library at the Insight office, the Marcus Garvey House in North Minneapolis. And I value, and I'm proud of the collection, and I want to grow both collections. And I'm visualizing these collections as things that I can bequeath as gifts of value to
Mm-hmm.
my grandchildren and to their grandchildren and their grandchildren. So how do we sort of change the narrative in our community so that we, again, express the normalcy
Mm-hmm.
of acquiring, collecting, and engaging, of embracing,
Mm-hmm.
using this wealth of knowledge that books represent?
Right. I think, someone like yourself, there are many, I know a lot of folks who have their own home libraries. We should have times where you come to the bookstore and bring a few of your books and talk about your home library and inspire others to start growing a home library. And I know in terms of myself, I know that children who see their parents reading, they're going to want to read,
Mm-hmm.
So, and even, I was 20 years old before I read a book that I could see myself in. 20. And I was so happy when I finally did. There are still people out there who in their adult life have not really had that experience, because reading has become something that's not a real focus. And we all know that the reading gap in education is a disparity for children of color. And I really believe it's related to the books that they don't get in the school system. We need to get the books in the systems.
It's not an accident that I am a newspaper man or owner of a newspaper. When I was a kid, Mary and Adam, my dad sat me down every day at the dinner table and asked me, not asked, but required me to read the daily newspaper. And I read it. I read articles, just out of the paper that he said, read this, read that, read that. But the joy of it was the praise I got from him. He said, "Oh, you read so well. Your pronunciation, your enunciation, your clarity." And that just made me get better. I said, wow, I'm getting positive feedback. And I tell myself that planted the seed for me to have a love affair with words and with publishing, with newspapering. And that's why I'm in the business I'm in today. So that's how powerful an idea is. And if we can find ways to bring the other 100,000 Al McFarlanes, and Neil Harris's, right, into an intention of knowing that what we do and how we do it has that kind of powerful impact on our young people, I think we'll be moving down the road. Let's look at your website real quick and have you kind of walk us through that. And I wanted to bring Adam in for a second to talk about what this means for downtown. I want to commend you and the Downtown Council, Adam, for supporting this project and what more can we do together. But walk us through a couple of the things on your website at Strive Publishing.
Okay, so this is the Strive Bookstore side, and we really are just trying to bring awareness to the fact that we are in downtown Minneapolis and we are there for everyone. We bring value. Yes, we are known as a Black woman-owned bookstore, but really our mission is to, again, I'll say it again, connect across cultures, because there's the thing with being able to see yourselves in books, but also being able to learn about others through books, right? So bringing people together, not just to buy books, but to engage in storytelling, to engage in meeting authors. We had Rose McGee from Sweet Potato Comfort Pie come out and read her book, Can't Nobody Make a Sweet Potato Pie Like My Mama, or I think that's, I hope I didn't mess up the title, but the children, she encouraged the children to read passages from the book, and they were so proud of themselves. We just we want to find ways to engage the community. We've had book clubs. We're open to people bringing their book clubs into the store. We have authors come in, so many local authors that I've met since we opened in June. And we are happy to shelve their books or display their books in our bookstore and help people to know each other, get to know each other, like through engaging in books and events. So when you look at the website, you'd be able to go to events and you'll see what authors are coming through. We are doing every third Thursday, we're doing an open mic. So those who maybe are not too interested in reading might be interested in, just sharing their stories. Some people write and have, this is what I learned through publishing, they have written books that they just keep on the shelves because they don't have opportunities for them to come out into the world. Well, come on out to open mic, share part of, what you've been working on, those kinds of things. So when you go through the website, you'll be able to go up at the top and click on events or, I can't really see that. It's so small, but everything you need to know.
Yeah, we're down about a minute or so. But Adam, how important is it to have businesses like this have the opportunity to grow? What can the council do to support entrepreneurial ventures like this?
Yeah, it's absolutely essential. We talked about downtown being a welcoming place, an inclusive place before in our talked a little bit, and we know downtowns are intersections for that kind of this kind of cultural collaboration for people see people they wouldn't otherwise see in the rest of the city or the rest of the region. And so what we do is we try to partner with the businesses individually. We try to help them find space. This building's been great. There's a handful of buildings. We have 8 shops around the downtown Minneapolis. We're really proud of how well they're doing. And we're trying to grow that. How do we get the entrepreneurs to network with each other, work together, grow together, and then how can we help market that too? So we were able to help get a story in the Star Tribune recently that was an excellent summary of what Strive Bookstore is. Help get the word out, because people don't always, unless you're down here, you don't always know even some of your local retailers, our local small businesses and people of color. And so we're super happy to support Mary and the efforts here.
Any special events coming up, Mary, that you want people to come to?
We do have an author visit this Wednesday, and then third Thursdays on March 21st.
Okay, see, March 13th, author signing and meeting, born in the year Xeron, Tony Wintersdorf. That's going to be
he's a local author. He just we meet a lot of authors who just walk into the bookstore, so that's fun. And then our book talk with women authors. They're women authors who write, Black women who write about nature.
Awesome. Listen, Mary, continued success, and let us figure out how we can collaborate more to support your work, your presence, and your success in downtown. Adam, thank you for the leadership you're providing. We want to be more supportive of shaping the best downtown we can have for all of us in Twin Cities. Thank you. I'm Al McFarlane. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.